Oh my goodness, my mic was muted. So let's try this again. Whew, what a day. Okay, so hi, I'm Nathan Smith. I'm the Digital Programming Coordinator here at the Central Arkansas Library System. Thanks for joining me for Video for the Web. I'm excited to have you, and I hope you get a lot out of the class. If we've got a ton of stuff going on right now, we're in the midst of summer reading club, and so if you want to check out more cool, useful events, then you can find those at cals.org. Just head over there, move your mouse over events, and move it over, find an event online, and that should get you to exactly where you need to go. The other big thing I like to do at the beginning of class is I always like to encourage folks, if you have questions, speak up and let me know. Don't worry about if it feels like a silly question or if you wonder if it might seem obvious to me or something like that. That's not anything I'm concerned about. The point of a technology class is for you to learn something useful about technology. So if you're learning something useful, even if it's not necessarily something that was on my outline, then that's great. That's exactly what we want from a technology class. If, on the other hand, I'm sitting here talking to you and what I'm saying is not making a whole lot of sense and you aren't able to follow along and so on and so forth, then things are not going so well because, that's the whole reason we're here is for you to learn something useful about technology. So if you have questions, just speak up and let me know. How can you do that? Well, if you're joining me in Zoom, what you'll want to do is head down to the bottom, click on the little speech bubble chat button there, and type your questions in the chat box that pops up. If you're in Zoom on a mobile device, you'll want to tap the middle of the screen there. Look for a more button in the corner, tap on that, tap chat in the menu, and type your questions in there. If you are joining me through the live stream, if you're on YouTube, what you'll want to do is look to the right of my video if you're on a computer, or down below if you're on a mobile device, look for the live chat and type your questions in there. If you are on Facebook, you'll want to look down below and where you can add comments. Just add a comment like you would on any other post on all of Facebook, and I'll see that and I'll be able to respond to it. If you're joining me on Twitch, use the chat. So that's pretty much it. If we run into technical problems at any point, please let me know, because I want to make sure that we use our time wisely and that you're able to you're able to hear me and see my screen when applicable, and so forth. So let me know if we have any technical difficulties, so that way I can get that fixed as soon as possible. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive into the topic. Here's what we're going to do today. This class is going to have 3 parts, which are, which match up pretty nicely with the way that video production works. So we're going to talk about pre-production, and that's basically going to be kind of planning things out, getting the equipment that you need and stuff like that, and getting all that together. And we're also in that section going to talk about what we would call production, which is the actual shooting of the content that the video content that you're making. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about 2 different phases of post-production. So the next section is going to be the editing section, where we talk about how to edit video. If you folks who register for the class beforehand would have this link already, but I'm going to go ahead and put it in the chat and comments and stuff. But the software that we're using to do video editing to demonstrate, at least for today, is called Shotcut. It is free open source software. So you can go download it and install it right now, and it should work out great. So feel free to do that. You'll also, if you want to follow along with the editing, if you want to follow along with the editing demo, you're welcome to just watch. That's perfectly fine. If that's what you'd prefer to do, or if you want to come back later on, and if you want to just watch for now and then come back later on, watch the recording and follow along with that, you're welcome to do that, of course. But if you want to follow along live, I'll go ahead and drop a link in here as well, which will give you links to the demo footage that I'm using and the royalty-free song that I'm using in the editing at the end of the clip there. So you can download those materials and you can follow along with me if you want to. Or like I said, you can come back later. This is streaming to the CAL's Facebook page, the YouTube channel, and the Twitch channel. So YouTube's probably the most likely place that you would go to watch sort of the replay. So you can head over there and rewatch later on if you want to view, if you want to watch the first time and then do the second time. Oh, you know what? By the way, just to mention this, the next couple of days, this is kind of part of a loose series. The next couple of days, we're going to be digging into some other video topics. Tomorrow, I'm going to be doing my Premiere class for Adobe Premiere Pro. It's called Fade In with Adobe Premiere. If you are interested in getting a little deeper into some video editing techniques and stuff like that, then that'd be a good next step for you. If you are, and then the following day on Friday, we're going to be doing effective After Effects. So we're going to be talking about Adobe After Effects and doing cool stuff with footage that, creating graphics and stabilizing footage, doing different effects that you can do in After Effects. So if you're interested in that, I encourage you to join me again the next couple of days. Okay, so anyway, we're going to be doing editing as the second part of the class. And then third and finally, we're going to be talking about uploading. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because you may be wanting to upload to a variety. Let's see. Well, that's weird. Okay, very strange. Well, okay. For some reason, wow, Zoom is doing some weird things. Okay, so anyway, you may want to, you may want to upload to different types of platforms, just depending on what you're working on. So, I'm gonna show you a brief example of how the uploading works on YouTube, but we won't necessarily be digging into any other platforms, and we won't be spending a whole lot of time on that just because there's not a whole lot to tell there. So let's go ahead and talk about some of those basics. So the first thing I want to mention is just sort of what kinds of, or is to just sort of do some general thinking, to be honest. There's a lot of different stuff you can that you can accomplish, or there's a lot of different stuff you can make in terms of video content, and different tools and different techniques are going to be better or worse for the type of content that you want to make. So you want to kind of think about what sorts of things you're wanting to do. You could be trying to do some sort of marketing, or you could be trying to do tutorials or even classes like what I'm doing here. You could be just making little vlogs where you just talk about your life or about topics that that you're interested in or passionate about. So there are a variety of different things that you could do in your content, and you know, many of those are good options. But you want to kind of think about where you're going to be, what kinds of things you need, and just how, just sort of what you want your ultimate final product to be. Because when you do that, it's going to make it a lot easier to arrange things in such a way that that your content will be what you want it to be. So you want to think about that. You want to think about, you know, maybe even write a little script for your first video, things like that, before you really get into planning. So that way, you know what you're going for. And that just in and of itself is going to eliminate a lot of problems before they even crop up, because you'll know, you'll have a goal in mind. And so that can be really, really helpful. Based on that, you'll then want to start thinking about more of the logistics of it. One of the key pieces of logistics is what kind of equipment are you going to use? The biggest thing is, for video obviously, is what are you going to shoot with? A lot of folks, particularly when they're first starting out, are going to be using a smartphone. That's perfectly fine. That's honestly a really good choice in a lot of situations. Smartphones are, you know, they are, particularly the higher end ones, have really nice cameras built into them. And they do a lot of the things that you have to do manually with a professional camera automatically. So you don't have to think about that as much, which is useful when you're starting out, you know, to have kind of less things to worry about, basically. So smartphone's a really good option. You could also, particularly if you're doing something a little more low maintenance, you could just use a webcam like the one I'm using now. The one I'm using now, by the way, is the Logitech 920S HD. So if you like how that looks, then you can get that same camera, and it's not too terribly expensive. It's I want to say it can go from between 70 and $100, something like that. So if you need a camera, that's not a bad place to start, particularly if you're doing a webcam. So you can also shoot, you know, you can also spring for a camera. There are a ton of different options. A lot of people, particularly if they're doing more short form type content, will buy actually like digital still cameras, and that's not a bad plan either, because those digital still cameras have high resolution, you know, sensors in them. They can capture a lot of detail, and you know, a lot of the newer ones shoot even up to 4K video, but you'll probably have to shoot in small, you know, it'll probably shoot in kind of small segments. So if you're going to have really long, continuous shots of some sort, that might not be the best option. So so it's useful to think about that. The next thing that I want to suggest thinking about is the sound. So there are a few different things that you can do in terms of getting good sound. First of all, you want to think about the environment that you're going to be in. So we'll talk a little bit more about the environment here in a moment or two. But for now, one of the key things is essentially the auditory setup in the environment that you're in. So if you're out in a, you know, if you're out somewhere in the middle of a park, or if you go to a coffee shop, or, you know, if you are out on the street somewhere or whatever, that's going to be a pretty noisy environment. In outdoor environments, you're going to get wind noise. And, if it's a public place, there are going to be people going in and out. Even somewhere like an office, you may have people popping in to ask you questions about work or, those sorts of things. So you want to kind of think about what's going on there. Even at home, a lot of times there are kind of annoying sounds that, or at least they will be annoying on video, that you don't really think about when you're just living your life around the house. So for example, the refrigerator in the next room, or the air conditioning, particularly if it's louder, like one of those window mount units could be really, really distracting in video content. And so you want to think about those types of things. Find a quiet place. Some people will, if they want to get, if they want to get really nice, clean sound, will go so far as to record in their closet, or things like that. So you want to think about it, think outside the box, and just think about, where am I going to be? It's not necessarily bad to film outside or, out in a public place or whatever, but you want to be mindful of that, because the more you do, that, the less of your audio is within your control. And if something else goes wrong, you may end up with unusable footage or unusable audio. So you want to be mindful of that. Other things to make your audio better, placing the mic closer to you. You'll notice if you look at me right now, I'm just a few 3 or 4 inches from the microphone, and that makes the sound typically nice and clear. So that can be a really good way to go. Now, obviously, if you're doing something a little more narrative or those sorts of things, you may not necessarily want a microphone right in front of your face. Totally fine, understandable. And so you may have to get a little more creative with it. But if you can get a mic close to your mouth, that's a good way to go, or close to your subject if you're filming someone else. So being close definitely helps. Being in a quiet place, turning off that AC, staying away from the refrigerator, closing the doors, all of these types of things are really helpful. You can also get a microphone. So in some cases, you probably will want to go for an external mic rather than using the mic that's built into your camera or your phone. The mic that's built into your phone is designed for clearly audible phone calls. It's not really designed to capture high quality audio for video purposes. So you can get, instead of that, you can get there are mics that will plug into a phone, or mics that will plug in with a little adapter. You can record separately on some other device. So either getting a little audio recorder or something like that. It doesn't necessarily have to be the same as your video. The only thing, if you record your audio and your video separately, that can actually be a really good way to get high quality audio. But you do want to be mindful that your audio is going to, or that you'll have to sync your audio and video at some point. A really easy way to do that, you've probably seen in movies before, how they have the little clapper where they say, take one, action. That serves a specific purpose. It's not just to look all fancy in Hollywood. The point of that is that you can see the little clapper at the top go bam onto the top of the of the board, and you can also hear it at the same time. And so when you're recording audio from with some other device other than the camera, then you can go in and line up where the clap happens in the audio track and where the clap happens on screen. And that'll allow you to keep your audio in sync. So that's really, really useful. But an easy way that you can do that without any equipment is you can just clap. I'm not going to do it because if you're wearing headphones, it might be a little startling. But yeah, you can just clap and that'll work great. So let's see. There's so let's talk about where and how to shoot. So one of the most important things that you can think about when you're planning your shoot is lighting. Excuse me. Generally speaking, the more light you have, the better. But you want to think about it in a few specific ways. Having lots of light is really good, but you want to think about where the light is coming from in relation to your subject, who you're shooting, if it's you or if it's or if it's someone else who's in your video. What you want to, or what I mean by that is you want to kind of think about so if you look at me, if you look at my video here right now, I haven't got this perfect, unfortunately, because in my office, the overhead lights are pretty strong. And so, it's kind of hard to offset them, unfortunately. But in general, what you want to do is you want to have some light in front of you, a good amount of light in front of you, assuming that you're the subject. You want to have a little bit of light behind you that's dimmer than the light that's in front of you. Those are like the biggest things. So right now, I've got here behind my camera, I have a ring light. It was $20. I got it on Amazon. And there are a bunch of different versions of that you can find fairly cheaply. And what that does is give me a nice even light. It's not particularly harsh because the light is essentially coming from multiple angles since it's arranged in a circle. And it's just behind my camera. So that gives me a nice amount of light coming out, coming onto my face from in front. I also have a little light over here that's just a kind of an under the counter like bar light. And that helps with, that helps even things out a little bit because the ring light is here, but over here are all of these overhead lights in my office. And so having the bar light over here offsets that a little bit, gives me some light that's coming from this direction so that ideally, I'm not looking super bright from here and, from this side and too dim from this side. Unfortunately, like I said, not 100% successful. If you look right here and right here, you'll notice that my video is a little bit overexposed because of those bright overhead lights. That means there's too much light there relative to everything else that's in the frame of my video. So you want to watch for that, and getting, particularly if you're in a new environment, if you're like if you're just shooting your first couple of videos, or if you haven't shot in this particular location before, you might want to try to capture some test footage so that you can see whether you're getting, whether there are any problems with things like the lighting and even the sound as well. So having fairly even lighting in front of you and having something behind you is good. The reason that you want something behind you is because visually, our eyes want to be, and our brains want to be able to distinguish the subject, the person that's in front, or the person that we're supposed to be looking at, or the object that we're supposed to be looking at on screen, our brains want to be able to distinguish that subject from the background. And so one way that that can happen is by getting essentially having a little bit of light that sort of outlines the subject. That's called backlight. And when a subject is backlit a little bit, then you're able to, you're able to see like, okay, this is what I need to focus on rather than, the toys on my desk or the, or the windows with people going back and forth in the hallway behind me, that sort of thing. So having backlight allows your brain to more easily focus on the actual subject of the video footage. One really, kind of the classic way to set up this lighting, and again, it'll depend on where you're shooting and what effect you're going for, but one sort of classic way to set up this lighting is what we call key lighting. So the way that key lighting works is you have 3 lights. One light is, the sort of the brighter light is out in front of the subject, but off to the side a little bit. And that is called the key light. And that's going to be the light that provides the primary illumination. And it's going to be the direction that your audience perceives the light to be coming from in your image. So, if you're using this and you want to, you want it to look like your subject is in front of a window, then you probably want to have the key light kind of where the window would be, in your setup. There's another light in front of the subject as well in key lighting, and that is called the fill light. The fill light is also in front of the subject, but again, it's off to the other side. So key light's over here, fill light's over here. The fill light is meant to, as I alluded to earlier with this little bar light that's next to me, the key light is meant to fill in the other side of the subject so that the subject, so even though the light appears to have some directionality, like it seems to be coming from a specific direction, the direction of the key light, but it's not super bright, a super bright face on this side of the face and super dark over here. You're kind of in shadow. And then the backlight to separate your subject from the background visually. So that's kind of a classic way. Again, that's called key lighting or 3-point lighting. That's kind of a classic way to set up your video so that, it's a good place to start if you're not sure where to place your lights. Now, when I say lights, you can go out and get expensive video lights. That's certainly a choice if you have the budget. But a lot of times that's not necessarily all that, a lot of times that's not necessary. What I have done in some situations is just grab lamps from around the house and place them where I need them to be, put them up on a box or put them on their sides, remove the shades or put the shades back on, things like that to just mess around with it until I got the look that I wanted. So that's a great way to do it, honestly, unless you have it in your budget to buy some expensive video lights. The ring light, though, I will say I bought that thing a few months ago and totally worth it. If you have $20, that's a really good way to upgrade your lighting setup a little bit. By the way, if you have glasses, you might need to actually use 2 ring lights if you're going to use a ring light, because otherwise you get a reflection off of the glasses. So just be mindful of that. And if you're seeing a reflection, that might be a good way to sort that out. Okay, so let's talk about. So we've talked about lighting. One additional thing I will say while we're on that subject is a really nice, easy way to do this if you're shooting during the day, and you've got a window close by, is put your camera in front of the window and then sit and then sit in front of the camera. So it's window, camera, subject. That's a nice way to get a lot of really good light on your face without really any effort on your part, is to use natural light. Now, of course, that light is going to vary depending on what time of day you're shooting and depending on where your window is and stuff like that. But that's actually a pretty nice way to go about it sometimes. Okay, so let's talk about how to get or how to set up our shots, because this is also important, what we call composition. Composition is basically the placement of your subject and other objects within the frame of your camera. So you can do a whole lot of different things as far as composition goes. There's, there are tons of cool little tricks, and you could spend a whole lot of time on that. There are whole classes devoted to that. Not my classes, but someone's. But you can. But what you can do is, a few little tips about composition. First of all, unless you're shooting video for TikTok, don't shoot portrait mode. If your video is rotated into portrait mode where the video is taller than it is wide, typically that's not the way we watch videos. If you're going to be shooting on or if you're going to be posting your videos somewhere like YouTube or almost anywhere, landscape video is the way to go. You can do a lot of interesting stuff with portrait video, but except for on TikTok, no one likes portrait video, because you're going to, if you're watching it on something like YouTube, there's going to have to be something to fill in the frame, or there are going to be these massive black bars along the sides of things. So it's not optimal. You definitely want to shoot in landscape mode. So turn your phone on its side. By the way, if you're shooting with your phone, I guess I should say, generally speaking, if you're shooting with your phone, you're going to want to use the back camera unless you're going for a very casual vibe, because the back camera is going to give you, the back camera is larger and it has a better sensor than the front camera. So the front camera, like I said, if you're shooting handheld and you're kind of like, hey guys, how's it going? Whatever. That's the front camera is okay for that. But generally speaking, the back camera of your phone is going to give you a better picture. It might give you better sound depending on how your microphones are arranged. Boy, I mean, I can't say enough. It's going to give you a much better picture. You might even have some additional options in terms of lenses on some of the newer iPhones and Samsung phones. They have stuff like telephoto lenses where you can do zooms, or wide angle lenses where you can get like a huge landscape all in one go. So you'll have some. So you'll also have some additional options if you use the back camera sometimes. So anyway, shoot it in landscape. A second thing that you want to do is find some way to hold your phone steady. There are a number of different forms that this could take. One easy way to do it is set it on top of something. A very convenient thing that you could do is to get a little tripod. I found there's a tripod that I bought on Amazon. In fact, I bought a bunch of them, probably 10 at this point for various purposes. But you don't have to have 10, I promise. But there's a really cheap tripod that's on Amazon that you can get. If you're using your phone, you can get a little clip that has a tripod like screw thing on it, where you can attach it attach your phone to the tripod. And that's going to give you a lot of options in terms of the height and placement and stuff like that, so you don't have to rely on where there's furniture in your house or that sort of thing. And it keeps stuff out of the way. Sometimes it's hard to prop up the phone or whatever device you're using, and also have the, have a clear field of view. Because if you set it on top of a bookshelf or something, then sometimes you can get the edge of the bookshelf in the bottom of the shot, things like that. So a tripod really gives you a lot of flexibility as far as that goes. But if you don't have a tripod, you don't have the budget for that, then that's perfectly fine. There are tons of other things that you can do, creative solutions. You can you can tape it onto something as long as you use strong enough tape and it's not going to damage your phone. You can prop it up on using things like a bookend. Actually, that could work pretty well. There are a whole host of things you can do, but really the point here is try to keep your camera steady as much as possible. You don't want, there's doing a handheld shot where it's moving around is not bad if that's what you intend. But unless you're going for a specific effect, having a steady camera is, will in general look a little more professional, and it'll just be easier to work with in editing and things like that. So, definitely, unless there's some specific reason to shoot handheld, find a place to put your camera, and and just kind of leave it there. Okay, so a good position for your camera when you're working on when you're shooting a person. So kind of a shot like I have right now in my webcam here. A good position for that is slightly above eye level. So my eye level is like right here, and the camera's there a couple inches above that. So that's why webcams usually look pretty good if somebody's sitting in front of a desktop computer. It's a decent placement for it. So slightly above eye level, that's a good place to be if you're just shooting a person or a couple of people, something like that. If you have your camera too low, it tends to look either like a little scary or just unflattering. It tends to like emphasize underneath the chin and things like that, which is not not an ideal angle for a lot of people. That's a good way. That's a good general rule of thumb in terms of camera placement. And of course, you want to try and get it sort of placed so that you want to get it placed so that you can see what you need to see. And you want to try and leave out extraneous details when you can, or just kind of try to keep distracting things out of the edges of the frame and stuff like that. That can really help sometimes. Lining things up, so that they are maybe a little more symmetrical, things like that is kind of nice. One thing to remember, though, is you don't have to place your subject in the middle of the frame. In fact, if you get your subject in the exact middle of the frame, it looks a little weird sometimes. There are instances where it's done well. If you watch a Wes Anderson movie, he tends to exactly center things in the frames of his shots. But for the most part, your subject, you'll want your subject kind of off center a little bit, kind of like I am here. And one easy way to think about that is what we call the rule of thirds. So the rule of thirds is dividing your frame. The way you think about it is you divide your frame into thirds vertically and horizontally. So thirds and thirds. like that. So in fact, on a lot of phones and a lot of cameras, you can actually turn on little guidelines that will show you where each third of the frame is, so that you can kind of use that as kind of a little bit of a hint. The way that what the rule of thirds says. Now, when we say rule, we're doing something artistic, so it's not as much of a rule as it is a guideline. You can, but what the rule of thirds says is, as humans, we tend to prefer, rather than the subject being in the center of the frame, we tend to prefer our subjects to fall on those lines that the rule of thirds points out. So that's why I'm here rather than over here. That doesn't look terrible, but this is a little bit more pleasing overall. And so you can use that to kind of, if it falls along one of those lines, to kind of guide your viewer's eye to the place you want it to be. So that's I know that's a lot to take in, but it's important to kind of know some of that stuff and be thinking about those things before you shoot. Video editing is great, but video editing is kind of, well, if you have bad footage and bad audio, there's only so much editing can do to save it. So rather than spend all of our time on editing, which is important, I want to make sure that you have some tips so that you can create good footage, and that'll make your life much easier during the editing process. Speaking of which, let's fire up the software and get into the editing itself. So here we go. I will get the screen sharing rolling here. All right, excellent. Excuse me. Cool. So again, let me, I'll go ahead and drop those links in one more time while I'm thinking about it. So we're using Shotcut, which is a free open source video editing program. You can find it at shotcut.org. And you can find the example file, links to the example files that I'm using at cals.link/video-4-web. So I've got those links in the chat and comments and so forth. And so you should be able to get there. Let's see. There we go. All right, excellent. Okay, so we've got our Shotcut window open, and let's go ahead and dive into some of this. So let me actually set it back to the way it normally is when you first open it up. Okay, so it should look something like this probably. Depends on whether you've opened the program or not and used it before, but something like this. So whenever we're doing video editing, one of the first things to know, if you're using a computer to edit video, which everybody does now, but back in the day, when folks were editing film, they would edit it using a razor blade and actual film. And that's, while that sounds kind of hardcore, at the same time, it could lead to problems, because if you edited wrongly, there wasn't much there weren't very many ways to correct that, whatever problems you ended up with. And so, so one of the nice things about video editing in the digital world is we can, is our editing is non-destructive. What I mean by that is that you're going to take all your footage and you're going to bring it into your, at least all the footage that's good that you might want to use. You're going to bring it into your video editing program. And then you're going to be able to mix it around however you see fit. And, if you accidentally cut off some bit that you wanted to keep, it's still there. What your video editing program is doing as you edit is it's acting as kind of a stage manager. If you've ever done anything with theater, things like that, the stage manager, is backstage and helps the actors like, okay, it's almost your cue, and they'll come on and then they'll come off and so on and so forth. So, in that situation, so your video editing program is like that. Whenever you use a particular clip, then when you're playing it back, the video editor is saying, okay, clip number 7, you're on. And then once you get through the portion of clip number 7 that you intended to use, then the program switches over to clip number 13 or whatever. So that's really handy. We don't have to worry about making any permanent changes that we're going to regret. We can just do, and we always have the option to change it back, basically. So let's go ahead and bring in our footage here. So what I did was I downloaded the advising scene from the website that I linked to. I believe I'm using scene number 1. I said which one it was on in the link. If you go to that cals.link/video for web, then you'll see which one I'm actually using. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in that footage. So I'm going to click the plus here. Whoops, sorry. Nope, that's not the right thing. Okay. I'm going to come up here and click open file. And then I'm going to it's on my desktop there in advising scene. There it is. Okay, and I've got all of these little clips right here, six video clips. I'm just going to grab all of them. So I'm going to hold down with my mouse button and drag a little box around them. And I'll click open. And there they are, all 6 clips. Oh, and one has started playing. Not quite yet. So that's added it to the playlist in our Shotcut. In general, this sort of process is what we call importing our footage. It works a little differently in various other editing programs. It just depends on what you what program you're using, but it's basically the same thing. What we're doing is we're pointing our video editing program to a particular file, and we're saying, hey, we're going to use this file in our project, to create the final version of our video. So what we've got here, we won't watch all of this footage because that would be a little boring. But what we've got here is we have 3 different, I believe 2 different runs of this scene from different angles and different portions of it. And basically what we want to do is create one coherent scene out of all of this footage. One of the things, if you're shooting narrative films, if you're making a short film or you're making a feature film or whatever, one of the things that happens is oftentimes you're going to take, oftentimes you're not going to use the same run through, the same take of the material. So, if you do 6 different takes, then you might use this line from take number 1, this line from take number 5, and then this line from take number 3. Then you go back to take number 1 for the next line, and so forth. And you might even switch between them, you know, in the middle of a line of dialogue or something, just depending on the situation. So we can use, essentially, we can use any of this footage as long as it makes sense and as long as it's smooth in order to create the final version of our project. In web video, as opposed to sort of more narrative, you know, kind of more narrative filmmaking, like making a short film or something like that, the rules are even a little bit looser. A lot of times what will happen if you watch someone who does tutorials or vlogs, a lot of times what happens is they, you'll notice as they're talking, you'll see a shot of them, and then you'll see, and then as they're continuing to talk, you'll actually see it zoom in on them a little bit. What's happening there, they're not even using two cameras. They're actually using the same camera, and they're just narrowing it down a little bit because they're using, sometimes they'll use that as a technique for emphasis, but sometimes they're actually using different takes of the same, you know, of the same line right in the middle, or, you know, or they're using that to disguise the fact that, you know, they said, you know, they got through this part of the video and then they got up to take a bathroom break and they came back and now they're doing the next part of the video, which is not cheating. It's, you know, that's perfectly fine. It is something in, you know, in things like short films, it tends to take us out of it because we're trying to have, you know, we're trying to feel the illusion of being transported to a different place, even if it's a pretty mundane place, like say a college advisor's office. But yeah, for narrative films like this, that tends to take us out of it. But for things like a tutorial, it's perfectly fine. It's you know, and most of the time we don't even notice it. Anyway, let's take a look at this. So we've got our clips lined out in our playlist here, and this clip, well, once we imported all of the clips, once we brought them into our project, immediately this one started to play. You've got your video player here, and you actually have two different video players. So the video player that's here right now is called the source player. You'll notice there's a little source tab down at the bottom here. The source player is going to show me essentially raw footage, or you know, or the, you know, a complete song or whatever kind of media I'm working with. The source player is going to show me the original version of that media. The project player over here right now is showing me basically a little play. It's showing me how long each of these clips are in the playlist. But once I get something in my timeline down here, then it's going to switch over and become the it's going to switch over and it'll actually show me how my final project is coming along. So let's go ahead and watch this clip just briefly. We'll move we have the little playhead here, this slider. We can move back and forth to get to specific parts of the clip. Let's watch this one. Our advisor coming in, coming through, sitting down. Fiddling with her laptop.
All right, we can do a cut there.
Excuse me, and that's the end of that clip. So that's not a whole lot, but basically come on, camera. The autofocus on this webcam sometimes. So we've got our so that's our first clip, and we can you know, if we're looking, particularly if we're looking through our footage for the first time, we would kind of want to watch through a lot of this to review it and sort of see like what how everything's looking, and you know, whether we got good audio, whether we got good video, if there's any if there are any like mics in the shot and things like that. You know, if there's someone in the background who's kind of video bombing. So you want to kind of watch through your footage just to see what you have and get familiar with it. And you can also kind of mark things that are useful or important in various ways. So you could one of the key things that you can do, and that kind of depends again on the program that you're using. One of the key things that you can do is mark in and out points. So at the beginning of this clip, we've got the video, or we've got the door open, and we can kind of see way out in the hallway. It looks, the shot's just a little off, like it's a little sideways anyway. It looks a little strange. So, and her head's cut off too. So honestly, like, you know, most of this, well, once we get the student in the shot, it makes a little more sense. He's kind of in the middle of the frame. So we could probably, once the doors close and she kind of turns around and starts walking, that would probably be a good place to come in if we decided to use this clip at all. We may not decide to use it at all, but if we do, this might be a good place to start. So what we're going to do is we're going to mark what's called an endpoint on this clip. I can do it by dragging this over here, but I guess it moves the playhead as well, which is not really what I want. The better way to do this is I can place my playhead here, and I can just hit I on my keyboard, the I key. When I do that, you'll notice now this moves over, so I don't have this blue area with a red border around it anymore. I just have this gray spot right here. So what that's telling the program is, if I use this in down in my actual timeline, I'm not going to use that beginning portion of it because I don't care for that portion, basically. We also have at the end of our clip,
we can do a cut there.
He says, okay, let me do a cut there. About here is where where the director starts saying that. So we also don't need this end bit. We're not going to use that. So I'm going to hit O to mark the out point for this clip. So now I just have essentially the usable portion of the clip marked out here. And that makes it really a lot easier to edit, because then you're not worried about irrelevant bits, or the part before you really start shooting, or things like that.
Awesome.
Okay, so this is a similar thing. This one,
and
so we have our play controls down here. One of the key things, of course, which you're going to use a lot when you're editing, is to start and stop playback. To start and stop the playback, the easiest way to do it is to hit the spacebar key.
Action.
Hitting spacebar will pause and play whenever you need to. You've also got playback controls down here that you can click. Another really useful thing that you'll want to know how to do as you're video editing is you'll want to know how to move frame by frame. Now, I won't go into my whole spiel about frame rates. Suffice it to say, in order to give the illusion of movement, the way that a video camera works is it takes a bunch of still photos, and then when you watch the video, it flashes them on the screen in rapid succession. If it's fast enough, your brain can't tell the difference between that and real actual movement, or at least not enough to matter. So this particular piece of footage is, let me double check. Yes, these particular clips are shot at 24 frames per second, which is the standard frame rate for movies. Down here, you can see where you are exactly. You can see what's called the time code. So I'm looking at, so it says 00000300. So I'm at exactly 3 seconds into the footage. If I hit the right arrow key on my keyboard, that's going to advance 1 frame. So now I'm at 3 seconds and 1 frame, 3 seconds and 2 frames, 3 seconds and 3 frames. And of course, if I had something up here, that'd be minutes, something here, that'd be hours. So, so if I look at over here at the total time of this clip, 2 minutes, 2 seconds, and 4 frames. That's how long that particular clip is. So you want to be able to go frame by frame because you want to trim off those frames that you don't need. You want to be able to use all the frames that you have that are useful. And you want to be able to be precise with your edits. And so going frame by frame is pretty important with that. So left and right arrow keys, those are your friend. Those will help you go slowly through the footage to find exactly the moment that you need. You also have, there's also one other really useful kind of playback tool that I would recommend getting acquainted with. And that's called the Shuttle. So back in tape editing days, or if, or anywhere that they're still editing tape, a lot of times you'll have these special sort of recorders or viewers that have a shuttle wheel on them. The shuttle wheel kind of looks like a big volume knob on like a stereo, but instead of turning it to the right to turn the volume up or turning it to the left to turn the volume down, if you turn it a little bit to the right and hold it there, then it's going to slowly play through the footage. If you turn it a little more to the right, then it's going to play through the footage a little bit faster. Turn it even more to the right, it's going to play through a little bit faster. When you let go of it, it's going to snap back to the middle and it's going to stop playing. So the shuttle wheel allows you to quickly get through your footage to exactly the spot that you need, and then be a little more precise to get to the exact moment you need. So a lot of programs, including Shotcut and Premiere, which I'm going to talk about tomorrow, have a shuttle function to them. The way it works is you use the J, K, and L keys. So if I hit the L key, that's going to play the footage at normal speed. Hit it again, double time. Hit it again, probably quadruple. So you can really fly through the footage. If you want to slow it down a little bit, though, you hit the J key, and that slows it down a bit. If you want to stop it, you hit the K key in the middle. If you want to go backwards, then you hit the J key. Or, if you're going forward and you hit J several times, eventually it's going to slow down, stop, and then start running backwards. If you hit the J key several times, then it's going to really quickly rewind through the footage. I'll hit K to stop.
There wasn't a sign-up sheet outside the door,
so that can be really handy for getting through your footage quickly. You can say, oh, okay, I need to go a little faster, or I need to go a little slower. And then you can be like, wait, stop, really quick. So that's extremely handy. Okay, let's go ahead and drop some footage in here. So let's see, I'm going to look and see which ones these are. Okay, let's go with this. Okay, so this seems like a good one to start with, this clip right here. And rather than mark the ins and outs, you've seen that, but now let's go ahead and just dig into the nitty gritty of it. What I'm gonna do, move my mouse over this and just drag it down, hold down and drag it into this area here. This is the timeline, and I'll drop it right there. So when I drop this there, what's gonna happen is, because I didn't mark in or out points, I get the whole clip down here at the bottom on this timeline. And it also creates a track on the timeline. Timeline can contain multiple tracks, which is important because sometimes you need to overlay multiple pieces of footage on top of each other. Oh, we got a new Twitch follower. Hey, thanks. How's it going? So the tracks are important because sometimes you need to overlay pieces of footage on top of each other. But for now, we only have one track, and that's fine. You'll notice as I move my little playhead along here, we've got, we can quickly get to different spots in the footage. I can click up here to move to a specific place. And there's a ton of different stuff you can do. Let's go ahead and take a look. Let's see.
And action.
Oh, okay. So we've got and action. Let's go ahead and cut that off. A couple of different ways I could do that. One of the easiest ways is just going to be to use this tool right here, split at playhead. I'll click on that, and suddenly my one clip that I had down here becomes two separate clips, which I could move around however I want to. But really what I'm going to do is just delete this one. Click on it, press delete on my keyboard. There it goes. And I'll go ahead and slide this back just by clicking and dragging so that I don't have a blank space at the middle. Very important to avoid blank space when you're editing video, unless it's intentional. So just be mindful of that, little gaps in there. Very important to avoid a gap. Got him kind of sitting awkwardly. The advisor comes in. And probably a good thing to do at this point, once she's kind of out of frame or close to it, is we can go ahead and edit in some of the footage of her sitting down at her computer. So let's grab one of these. And so this is kind of similar, but following her around. So, oh, there's a camera. There's a camera. So you want to try to avoid those sorts of things. This is a good spot to come in. Let's mark this as the endpoint. Rather than, we could put it on top of this footage, but rather than doing that, I'm going to go ahead and right click inside of the timeline here. And I'm going to click insert track. Boom. And now I'll take this and drag it in, put it next to the playhead right here. And you'll notice because this is on top of the other clip, let me go ahead and make this bigger actually. So we've got these little dots right here. If you drag this, I can expand the timeline. I would like these individual tracks on the timeline to be a little shorter, but what can you do? You probably can do something, but I haven't messed with it enough. Okay, that seemed a little off. So we might actually trim a few frames off. So what I'm going to do is, okay, let me actually zoom in a smidge. So I'm going to click on the little magnifying glass to zoom in. Because she's still on screen, when we cut away, it looks odd. So what I can do here is I'm going to zoom in a little bit so that I can have a little more precision. I'm going to come here to the edge of this clip, hold down with my mouse button and drag a little bit to shorten it down. That's called a trim operation. And you can do that in either direction, even though it's called trimming the clip. You can trim it outward as well. So you can sort of untrim it. Okay, yeah, that still just doesn't look right. Let's go ahead and that's probably good. Okay, so I'm going to drag this a little bit over. What we want is probably for her to go out of frame, him to sit there for a second, and then we cut to the advisor. Yeah. And the audio is throwing us off as well, because you'll notice I have audio of the footsteps. So that's causing a problem. So what we probably want to do at this point is come along here. I'm going to select that clip again. And one other nice thing that you can do is you can use your, well, no, you can't do that. Never mind. Okay, I'm going to find the first, there we go. This is the first frame where this new clip starts. I've got this clip selected. I'm going to use the split at playhead again and cut that off. So that way we can just go ahead. Nobody's going to see this video footage. And we can trim the clip so that we don't get those footsteps in there. And now that's not too bad. So now let's go ahead and cut back to our student here. She sits down. Okay, she's sitting there for a sec. We're going to split this again. Trim that off a bit. And we might actually need to sync this up. So
I assume you're here.
yeah, so we've got the dialogue right there. And if you look down at these little waveforms right here, you can see where the dialogue starts on both tracks. So I'm going to zoom in basically as far as I can to try and be as precise as I can in making sure that the dialogue starts in the same time on both tracks so that everything's synced up properly. That looks about right.
I assume you're here to
Woo, creepy. Let's see. All right, let's try nudging it.
I assume you're
Nope.
I assume you're here.
Ooh. Okay, this might be from,
I assume you're here to explore your options for next semester.
this might be from a different
Yeah.
take. So it might not be exactly right.
I assume you're here to
Okay, so in any case, what we can do there is just mute
I
this.
assume you're here to explore your options for next semester.
Yeah. I didn't see an.
Let's see if we can cut back to him. So one thing that we can also do, which will probably be helpful in this case, now that we've got our audio approximately where we need it to be, is to separate it out. So I'm going to right click on this, go to more and click Detach Audio. What that's going to do is so we've had video tracks up here. That's going to create an actual audio track down below. And the audio track is going to, and that's going to allow us to play around with these, with these video clips, and just stick with this one audio section pretty much the whole time. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to unmute this, but let's go ahead and detach this one as well. And now, where I don't want the audio, I can, whoops, did not mean to do that, undo. Okay. And now I'm going to come down here, click on that one, and then split it. That's what I intended to do. So now we can select this, and I can just press delete to get rid of it.
I assume you're here to explore your options.
So if I were doing this, if I were spending a little more time on the edit here, I would probably I'd probably drag that out a little bit longer and sort of let the tension build a little bit while the students just sitting there. But we don't have time for all that, so we'll leave it as is. Okay. I'm going to come over here and find the end of the scene.
Grades have been, you've been skating on thin ice. You see where this is going? You simply can't afford to fail another course. You barely have enough credits to stick around as it is. So let's finish off this semester strong, okay?
And again, we might cut back to him for a little more sadness or whatever. But she is saying,
You simply can't.
But at this point, she's saying you simply can't afford to fail another course. So in addition to, so we want to kind of underscore that a little bit more, well, literally. So let's go ahead and throw in one other piece of media here. I'm going to click the plus sign. Whoops, that's not what I intended to do. Keep on, man, okay. I keep on hitting that plus. I'm going to go to open file and I'm going to find this Better Days. So this is from binsound.com. It's kind of a free open source royalty free or free and royalty free piece of music. Sad music that comes in. There we go. We got that little guitar situation there. So I kind of want this little sad guitar thing to kick in about where she's saying you simply can't afford to fail another class. First of all, I'm going to take this, I'm going to drag it over here into the playlist so that we make sure we've got it there. And I'll go ahead and mark this as the end point right here. I'm going to drag it down and I'm going to place it in this audio track that doesn't have anything at the moment. I'll drop it there. And then I'm actually just going to extend this back out by using a trim edit. Zoom out a little bit. And boy, that beginning part is longer than I expected. There we go. Okay. And let's see how this flies.
Grades have been, you've been skating on thin ice. You see where this is going? You simply can't afford to fail another course. You barely have enough credits to stick around as it is. So let's finish off this semester strong, okay?
Nice. Okay, so that works pretty well, but the music's too loud, at least when it comes in with that guitar bit. So we need to kind of level it off a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here and let's see. I'm going to add a filter. So I'm going to click on filters up here at the top, click the plus sign. And I'm going to do, I do have fade in audio here. So that's actually probably a decent choice for this. So I've got a little, you'll notice it's kind of dark up here at the top and then it starts out here. So what this is doing is it's showing me how the audio is going to fade in. I'm going to hold down on this little dot right here and I'm going to drag it quite a lot actually, because I want it to be a while before the full strength audio kicks in. And in addition to that, I'm going to, let's see, there we go. Okay. I'm going to come over here, click on this keyframes thing. Now, keyframes can do a lot of different things in video editing. We don't have time to do this, but we'll talk about it a lot in After Effects. Keyframes are a way of making something change over time in some specific way. So, a very important use of keyframes is an animation, where essentially it's the marks that your character or whatever has to hit. So by the time by this particular spot in the video, the character needs to be standing in this spot or having this pose. And then whatever happens between where you are and there, the computer can kind of figure out, it can extrapolate that. So keyframes to animate other things in video editing are work in a very similar way. So there's one keyframe here, and that is right here at the top. This keyframe is the essentially like the high mark where this audio needs to hit in order to over the course of time, basically. So let's see. I'm actually going to move that way out. Let's go back to the timeline and see.
You see where this is going? You simply can't afford to fail.
Yeah, that's not working. Okay, so let's try something else. I hit the minus sign there to remove this filter. I'm going to click the plus sign, and I'm going to go to audio over here. And this time I'm going to find gain/volume right there. Okay, so now what we need to do, by default, it's just going to be essentially as it was. But what I want to do is I need to add some keyframes. So I'm going to come over here, and I am going to set up a little fade first of all.
You've been skating on thin ice. You see where this is going? You simply can't afford to fail in the course.
All right, but then I want to change this up a little bit here and bring this level down.
You simply can't afford to fail in the course.
Okay. So that's going to be our, that's going to be this particular keyframe right here. The highest the volume gets for that.
You simply can't afford to fail in the course. You barely have.
That's not too bad. It probably needs to go a little lower.
You barely have enough credits to stick around as it is. So,
and then we can add additional keyframes by clicking the button here. And that's going to give us these little dots that we can move around to change the volume. So, and it just drops it wherever on the timeline. Whoops. Sorry, that's not the right thing. Click there. Whoa, too loud. These little stopwatches will do that. So you can change the level, you can make it, you can bring it up and down however you want.
You simply can't afford to fail in the course. You barely have enough credits.
It's too low, but.
Afford to fail in the course. You barely have enough credits to stick around as it is. So let's finish off this semester strong, okay?
And we might even bring that so that it's a little more.
Thank you.
Too loud, but you get the idea. There we go. All right, that's good. So we can use that to subtly manipulate the volume, or not so subtly, depending, and get it where we want it to be. There's a lot of other stuff we can do in editing. Of course, we don't have time to get into as many of the details. I do have the Premiere class tomorrow if you're interested in learning about Premiere, or if you're just interested in digging into some more advanced techniques. There's similar things you can do in this program, just not quite as many. It is free open source software, which is awesome, but but it also means that there are slightly fewer features, and it's not necessarily designed for like the pro user. But there's plenty more we could get into. The last thing that we need to do, though, to make sure that this is an actual usable video, because if you've done all this and you're like, oh, I'm really happy with this edit, great, but it kind of ends up, but it can kind of be a problem because but you're still not done, basically, because now that we've done this, what we need to do is we need to finalize it into an actual file that we can put somewhere, like upload to YouTube, for example. So what I'm going to do is come over here and click on export. When I do, it gives me these export options here. There are a bunch of different types of settings that you can use. Excuse me. And you can, whatever video platform you're using, you can look into what types of a video they prefer and things like that. That can be helpful information to have. One of my personal go-tos is HEVC, that stands for High Efficiency Video Codec. And that's a nice file format that keeps your file sizes low, but gives you really good quality. So that's a good option. And then down here, so it says, so we need to choose what we're exporting. So the timeline is obviously going to be the right option the majority of the time. But we could also export the playlist or each item on the playlist separately, or a particular source. So we could convert the video file basically to another format if we want to. There's a checkbox here that says use hardware encoder. If you have a nice fancy graphics card on your computer, then use this checkbox. If you don't have any particular graphics hardware, then that's probably not going to do you a whole lot of good. But then I'll click export file. I'm going to find a place to put it, and call it, give it a name like advising new or whatever. Hit save, and now it's going to show me the progress of the export over here on the side. You can see it kind of as it goes along. It's not going to take very long for this on my computer. Depending on your computer and depending on the length of your video and depending on the format that your video is in, the amount of time to export can vary wildly. So, and also what you've done in the edit. So leave yourself plenty of time for exporting. If you're like, oh, I'm done with the edit, and you tell everyone like my video is going up on YouTube in an hour, then depending on how long your video is and all those other factors, that might not end up being the case. So yeah, give yourself plenty of time. If you're on some sort of deadline or something like that, make sure that you leave lots of room for exporting. I've definitely had videos that, again, depending on my computer and stuff, I've definitely had videos that took hours and hours to export a few minutes of footage. And I've definitely had videos where, it was an hour or two of footage and it took, 10 minutes. So, so leave yourself plenty of time, particularly if you haven't tried this before. Over here, I've got, I'm going to right click and I'll just let it do its thing. Okay, so the video's exporting. Now, the last step in the process here, I need to upload it. So I'm going to switch my screen sharing over and show you my web browser here. All right, here I am over in Firefox, and I'm already signed into the appropriate account. So this is actually the Cal's YouTube channel. I'm signed in there. If you're doing this for an organization, or if you have a YouTube channel that you share with other people or something like that, you may have to click up here on your profile picture and click switch account and switch to the appropriate one. Just depends on what you're wanting to do. If you have a Google account, you have a YouTube channel, whether you use it or not. And so you just want to make sure you're signed into your Google account. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to click on I'm going to click here, click on YouTube Studio in the menu. That's going to take me to this channel dashboard where you can see some basic kind of heads up type information. I'm going to click on content and it's going to give me a whole list of the videos. Actually, I didn't need to click that, but whatever. I'm going to click on create up here at the top. And then I have two options, upload videos and go live. If I click go live, then I can do live streaming video. I do have a class that I do occasionally. In fact, I did it a couple weeks ago and it should be on the YouTube channel about live streaming using OBS Studio, another really useful piece of free and open source software. So feel free to check that out if that's of interest to you. Or you can go live using just your webcam and a mic or whatever. But I'm going to click upload videos since I just edited my video there. I'll click select files. I can also just drag and drop files on top of this little arrow, but I'll click select files and let's see if there it is, advising new. I'll click open and that's going to upload the video file to YouTube. And I'll walk you through these settings. So we have a title. So I'll go ahead and write it out there, advising new. A description, you have 5,000 characters to tell your viewers about the video and try to get them interested in it, basically. So don't go crazy. Don't use a lot of hashtags in there, at least not on YouTube, because it doesn't really do anything. Just give a good description, and that's a better way to go. Down here, there's the option for a thumbnail. If you want, you can, the thumbnail is the little image. You can see that over here on the side, like each of these is the thumbnail for this particular video. By default, YouTube will go through your video and try to find an appropriate, an appropriate frame from your video to display as the thumbnail. And it'll choose, there are 3 different options that you can choose from here. Once it finishes processing the video. Or you can upload your own custom thumbnail, which is probably better. You're probably better off doing for the most part. And so if you click on that, you can find more. I would recommend making one of those typically. I made a little thumbnail for this, like so. Cool. Down here under playlists, you can select an existing playlist from your channel or from a playlist that you're working collaboratively with someone on, or you can click to create a new playlist. It pays sometimes to group videos together that have similar types of content, so that if folks are, if you brought in a viewer for on a video with a particular topic, they can watch more of your videos on that topic and they'd be more likely to subscribe and that sort of thing. On YouTube, you'll also be asked whether your video is made for kids or not. If you say that it is, there are certain restrictions that are put on that video, which is, to protect kids, obviously. Or you can click no, it's not made for kids. That doesn't mean it'll be restricted from certain viewers seeing it, other than people who are using YouTube Kids specifically. But it just depends on the content that's in your video. And you can add an age restriction if you decide you need to, depending on what is in your video. I'll click next. We've got The ability to add subtitles if we want to. YouTube will automatically generate subtitles, but they don't always work 100%. So if you have someone subscribing or transcribing your video, you might want to upload subtitles instead. You can add end screens to promote other content on your channel or just other videos you like. You can add these cards to promote other types of content during the video. YouTube is going to check to see if there are any potential copyright issues and things like that. As it says, it's not final. So if you use some kind of copyrighted material that you don't have the rights to, you might still end up with a copyright with copyright issues that make your video unable to be monetized, or might make your video or might result in your video being taken down, or if you upload enough copyrighted content, might result in your entire YouTube channel being taken down. So just be cautious of that, pay attention to this, and just pay attention when you're putting your video together that you're not using copyrighted music and things like that. That's probably the number one thing is somebody's like, oh, I love this cool song that I just found. If that's the case, you probably can't use it in your video unless it's a cool song that you found on a royalty-free music site. So just be mindful of that. And YouTube gives you things like that over here. You'll notice it says audio library. They actually give you sound effects and music that you can use inside your videos on YouTube. And there are other places to find free music and sound effects as well. Finally, I have these visibility options here. And so if I make the video private, only I can see it unless I specifically approve other people to be able to see it as well. If it's unlisted, then I can distribute the link to my video anywhere I want. Anyone who has the link can watch the video. Anyone who doesn't won't be able to access it. They won't see it on my listed, they won't see it listed on my channel. They won't be able to search for it or anything like that. They need the link in order to be able to get to it. And then public, everyone can watch your video. It'll be listed on your channel. It could be featured on the front page of YouTube if it's popular enough or whatever. And you can also set an instant premiere. So what that does is it basically plays your video back live, and you can interact and live chat with audience members as they watch it. So that's pretty cool. You can also schedule the video so it'll become public at a specific time. Excuse me. And you can also create a premiere then. So you can be like, my new video premieres Monday at 6 p.m. And people who your subscribers and stuff can all jump on at that time and chat together and have fun. So once I get that, I can hit schedule or publish, and the video will go live. Right now it's saved as a draft. I'll just hit the X here. It's going to show up there, but I'm actually going to go ahead and delete it because I don't need it on the channel in actuality. All right. And that is pretty much it. What questions do y'all have for me before we wrap it up for today? All right, I don't see anything. So if you do think of a question later on, or if you're watching this, after the fact, then feel free to shoot me those questions via email. A good email address to use would be digital@cals.org, digital@cals.org. And I hope that you'll have a fantastic rest of the day. Thank you so much for joining me. Hopefully I'll see some of y'all tomorrow for Premiere or on Friday for After Effects. And have a great one. Bye.